The night sky above Earth's capital gleamed with the fading glow of a distant battle. The war against the Triarchs had begun, not with a formal declaration, but with a sudden, brutal attack. The first wave of the Triarch fleet arrived like a storm, an unstoppable torrent of death descending upon Earth's colonies. The early warning systems had failed, and by the time Earth's military could respond, entire colonies had been obliterated. Captain Aiden Cross stood in the war room of the Earth Coalition's military command, his gaze locked on the holographic projection of the galaxy. The Triarch fleet, vast and relentless, was advancing, leaving nothing but devastation in its wake. His mind raced as he reviewed the battle plans. It had been years since humanity had faced a threat this powerful, and despite their progress, the Coalition forces were far from prepared. "What's our status on the first strike force?" Cross demanded, his voice sharp. Dr. Alina Moore, the Coalition's leading strategist, stood beside him, her brow furrowed as she scrolled through data on a nearby console. "They're on course for the Triarch homeworld, but it'll take time to mobilize the full fleet. We've been spread too thin. The outer colonies are all but lost." Cross clenched his fists. "We can't afford to wait. If we give them any more time, they'll reach Earth." Moore nodded, her expression grim. "I know. We need something more than just a defensive strategy. We need to hit them before they hit us again. But to do that, we'll need more resources, more coordination. Right now, the only thing that could give us an edge is unity." Cross's mind raced through the possibilities. The fractured nature of Earth's political landscape had always been a barrier to decisive action. The nations had long operated independently, with their own priorities and goals. But now, in the face of extinction, the pieces of the puzzle had to fall into place. "We're going to have to bring everyone together," Cross said quietly, a spark of determination in his eyes. "The Coalition needs to be more than a loose alliance. It needs to be a unified force, fighting for one cause, survival. We have no other choice." As he spoke, the door to the command room opened and General Aveline Rousseau, one of the few leaders who had been fully supportive of uniting Earth's forces, entered. She was flanked by several officers, all bearing the weight of the impending crisis. Her face was drawn, yet resolute. "We've sent every ship we have to defend the colonies," Rousseau reported, her tone steady but strained. "But we can't match their fleet. They're outclassing us in every engagement. Their weapons, their technology, it's unlike anything we've ever seen." "Then we'll have to get creative," Cross replied, his voice firm. "Gather every available fighter, every dropship, every last reserve. We'll hit them hard, and we'll do it now." But even as he gave the orders, a feeling of unease gripped him. The Triarch's military might wasn't just technological, it was strategic. Each encounter with their forces seemed preordained, as if they knew Earth's every move. Their intelligence was beyond anything humanity had prepared for. "We're facing something far worse than we thought," Moore said, breaking the silence. "This isn't just an invasion. This is a calculated campaign. The Triarchs have already infiltrated our systems. They've studied us, watched us for years, and now they're executing their plan." Cross looked back at the hologram of the galaxy. "We need to hit them first. We strike fast and hard, before they complete their plan." The room fell silent, the weight of the decision settling over them. Cross knew that humanity's fate was hanging by a thread. The coming days would decide whether Earth's forces would push beyond their limits, or be crushed under the Triarch's might. With a deep breath, he gave the order that would set everything in motion. "Prepare for war. Humanity's last chance begins now." The first counteroffensive was a gamble. Earth's forces, rallying under a single banner for the first time in history, set their sights on a Triarch supply depot just beyond the outer rim of human-controlled space. It was a bold move, strike fast and hard, cripple their logistics before the Triarchs could bring reinforcements. Captain Cross was chosen to lead the mission, his tactical genius needed now more than ever. He stood at the head of a diverse, multinational fleet, fighters from the United Earth Navy, dreadnoughts from the Mars Defense Command, and battle cruisers from the Pacific Fleet, all unified under one banner for the first time in history. As the fleet entered the shadow of a dying star, the vastness of space seemed to swallow them whole. Cross watched as the armada prepared, his mind running through every possible scenario. The Triarchs had a reputation for overwhelming their enemies through precision and technology, and their early strikes had shown their mastery of both. Earth's forces were outclassed, outnumbered, and still trying to find their rhythm. It was a matter of will now, a matter of survival. "We hit them hard and fast. No hesitation," Cross commanded, his voice steady. "This is our only shot at turning the tide." His fleet cut through the darkness of space like a blade, the only light coming from distant stars and the occasional flicker of enemy detection systems. As they approached the Triarch depot, the reality of the situation began to sink in. Earth's fleet was small compared to the Triarchs, and the element of surprise was their only advantage. Then the enemy appeared. The Triarch fleet, not hundreds of ships but thousands, emerged from a cloaking field, swarming over the depot. The confrontation was immediate. Explosions rippled through the silence of space as energy weapons collided, and the shockwaves reverberated through the hulls of Earth's ships. The Triarch ships were sleek, fast, and equipped with advanced energy shields that absorbed Earth's firepower like a sponge. Cross watched the destruction unfold on his bridge, his hands gripping the command console. "Return fire! Full barrage on their flagships!" he shouted. But the Triarchs were prepared. In seconds, a destroyer-class ship, a colossal, angular vessel, unleashed a devastating energy pulse, disabling several of Earth's capital ships in an instant. The fleet staggered, trying to regroup, but the Triarchs were relentless. They moved like a swarm of predators, their ships darting in and out of range, striking with unrelenting precision. Captain Cross felt his heart race as his own ship rocked under the barrage. A warning light blinked on his console, shields failing. He didn't have time to dwell on it. He had a mission to complete. "All remaining fighters, engage, protect the transport vessels." Cross ordered. The fighters launched from the hangar bays, streaking toward the enemy with a speed born of desperation. A sea of dogfights erupted in the vacuum of space as Earth's pilots threw themselves into the fray. On the ground, things were no better. As Earth's forces began their assault on the depot's surface, Triarch ground troops, humanoid but monstrous in size and strength, engaged in brutal close-quarter combat. The soldiers of Earth fought valiantly, but the Triarch's superior technology, along with their sheer physical power, overwhelmed them at every turn. It was a bloodbath, the sounds of gunfire and explosions filling the air. In the midst of the chaos, Captain Cross received a message from Dr. Moore. "Captain, we've detected something. The Triarchs aren't just here for the depot. They're setting up a base of operations. This is only the beginning." His stomach tightened. If the Triarchs had a long-term plan here, it meant the battle was just starting. They weren't just pushing Earth's forces back. They were preparing for a campaign that could erase humanity from the galaxy entirely. Cross knew they had to fight harder, faster. This was no longer about defense. This was about striking back with everything Earth had. "We're not done yet," Cross shouted, rallying his troops. "This is our home, and we will not surrender." His fleet rallied, launching one final assault. The mission to cripple the depot succeeded, but the cost was immense. Several key ships were lost, including the flagship of Earth's defense. But the victory, however small, gave them something the Triarchs hadn't anticipated: hope. Cross's voice crackled over the comms, tired but resolute. "We've shown them we can hit back. Now we do it again, until they learn Earth's resolve." And deep down, Cross knew one thing. The Triarchs might have underestimated humanity's capacity to endure, but they would soon learn that Earth would push beyond its limits, no matter the cost. The days following the assault on the Triarch Depot were both a victory and a reminder of humanity's fragile place in the galaxy. The destruction had been immense, but Earth's forces had shown that they could strike back. The Triarchs had not expected Earth to put up such a fight. But this was only the beginning. The next step would be far more dangerous. Captain Cross sat in the command center of the newly christened flagship, Victory's Edge, a battered but still functioning vessel that had survived the assault. The bridge was quiet, save for the soft hum of the ship's systems. His crew moved in disciplined silence, as they all understood the stakes of the war they were now waging. Dr. Alina Moore, ever the strategist, stood beside him, her eyes locked on the projection screen, showing a series of encrypted transmissions from their spies within the Triarch fleet. She tapped the holographic display, zooming in on a strange formation of ships. "They've begun to consolidate," Moore said, her voice low and measured. "The Triarchs are pulling their fleets together. It's not just about our outer colonies anymore. They're coming for Earth." Cross nodded, a grim expression settling on his face. "I know. They're not just invading, they are calculating. They want to break our resolve before we can organize a proper defense." Moore's fingers danced across the console as she decrypted more of the intercepted messages. "We have confirmation. The Triarchs are planning a direct assault on Earth's core systems. They're targeting our energy grids and military strongholds. If they succeed, we'll be cut off from all our resources and unable to mount a counterattack." Cross stood up straighter, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Earth's lifeblood, the very things that powered their technology and allowed them to survive in the harshness of space, was under threat. A loss of those resources would mean their complete collapse. "We can't let that happen," he said firmly. "Prepare the fleet. We're going to hit them before they hit us." The order to mobilize was immediate. Cross had learned from their previous attack. The Triarchs weren't just technologically superior, they were tactical geniuses. Any move they made had been planned and expected. Earth's forces needed to be faster, more unpredictable. They had to fight not just with strength, but with ingenuity. The next few days were a blur of preparations. The ships were patched up, the fighters rearmed, and the fleet was reorganized into smaller, faster units, ready to strike at the heart of the Triarch fleet. Cross had called in every ally humanity had left, from the Mars Defense Forces to the outer colonies that still held on. But they were stretched thin, and every commander felt the looming threat. "We'll need a diversion," Moore said, breaking Cross's thoughts. "If we hit their core fleet directly, we'll never get through their defenses. We need something to draw their attention away." Cross turned to her, the answer clear in his mind. "A two-pronged attack. We'll send a small group to their outer defenses, force them to reposition. While they're distracted, we go for the heart of their fleet." Moore's expression softened slightly, a faint smile crossing her lips. "It's risky, but it's our best shot." The fleet set out under the cover of darkness, and for the first time in the conflict, humanity had a real chance at striking back. Cross commanded the primary fleet, leading the charge toward the Triarch's forward base, a vast fortress ship anchored near the edge of their home system. The goal was simple: disrupt their command structure. As they neared the fortress, the vastness of the Triarch ship loomed before them, a gargantuan structure of metal and energy. The Triarchs had built their fleets with brutal efficiency, and every ship was an extension of their will. They were as much a part of the enemy's strength as the soldiers who piloted them. And now, humanity would have to face it head-on. The Victory's Edge and its accompanying fleet fell into formation, ready for the assault. Cross's heart raced with the anticipation of battle, but there was no fear, just a deep, burning determination. "Prepare for engagement," he ordered, his voice cold and commanding. "This ends today." In the void of space, the silence was broken by the thunderous roar of weapons fire. The fleet surged forward, and the battle for Earth's survival began anew. The first wave of humanity's attack came with such ferocity that the Triarchs were momentarily caught off guard. The heavy bombardment from Earth's ships created a momentary breach in their defenses. Cross saw the opening. He barked orders, and the fleet sped toward the heart of the Triarch stronghold. But even as Earth's forces struck hard, Cross couldn't shake the feeling that the Triarchs had been waiting for them. It was too easy. The bait had been taken. Then, out of the darkness of space, an enormous shadow appeared. More Triarch ships, a second fleet encircling them. The true battle had begun. The moment the second Triarch fleet appeared from the abyss, Captain Cross's heart sank. It was a trap. The Triarchs had let Earth's forces get too close, luring them in like prey before revealing their full strength. 100 ships, then 1,000, emerged from the darkness, their sharp, sleek forms cutting through the stars like blades through flesh. "Damn it," Cross muttered under his breath, his fingers flying over the controls of the Victory's Edge. His fleet, still reeling from the surprise of the initial assault, now found itself trapped in the heart of the Triarch stronghold. The battle had just shifted from a desperate fight to survive into a fight for their very existence. "All ships, break formation, scatter," Cross ordered. "We need to get out of here. Regroup at coordinates Zeta 9. Now." The fleet exploded into motion, the ships diving in every direction to avoid the crushing firepower of the Triarchs. Energy beams erupted from the enemy vessels, slashing through space with blinding intensity. The Victory's Edge rocked violently as a pulsed shot grazed its shield, sending shudders throughout the vessel. Sparks flew from consoles and alarms screamed, but the crew responded with disciplined efficiency. "We've got enemy interceptors closing in," Lieutenant Harris shouted from the tactical station. "They're faster than anything we've seen before. We can't outrun them." "We don't need to outrun them. We need to fight," Cross replied, his voice hardening with resolve. "All available fighters, engage. Let's give them something to think about." Hundreds of Earth's fighters, small but nimble, streaked away from the main fleet, cutting through the darkness toward the incoming Triarch interceptors. The dogfights that ensued were brutal and chaotic. Earth's pilots fought with a desperation born of knowing that their homes, their families, everything they loved, depended on this moment. But the Triarchs were relentless. Their ships darted around Earth's fighters with impossible agility, firing with deadly precision, and one by one, Earth's ships began to fall. Cross's jaw clenched as he watched the battle unfold. Every loss felt like a blow to his soul. He had led them here, and now they were on the brink of annihilation. "Captain," Dr. Moore's voice crackled through the comms, "the Triarchs are adapting to our tactics. Their fleet is splitting into smaller squads. They are targeting our weaker ships. We're being systematically picked off." "We're not backing down," Cross growled, his eyes narrowing. "We've come too far to retreat now. All ships, fire at will. Target their command vessels. If we can take out their leadership, we can break them." The Victory's Edge unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, striking a massive Triarch flagship dead-on. The impact was staggering, and for a moment, it seemed as if the Triarchs might falter. But their shields absorbed the blows with unnatural efficiency. The flagship turned toward them, its weapon systems primed for the counterstrike. Just then, Lieutenant Harris yelled, "Captain, incoming fire from the rear. It's a super weapon." Before Cross could respond, a blinding light filled the viewport, and the Victory's Edge was rocked by an explosion that sent shockwaves through the ship. The hull groaned under the pressure as systems flickered and failed. For a split second, everything seemed to freeze. The entire fleet, Earth's last hope, was thrown into disarray. "Damage report," Cross barked, his voice low but urgent. "Shields are down to 30%. Multiple breaches in the hull. We're losing power in sections C, D, and E," Harris reported, his voice strained. Cross's mind raced. Earth's fleet had been lured into a position where the Triarchs could bring their full might to bear. If they didn't act fast, they would be wiped out, and humanity's last chance at survival would be gone. Get us into evasive maneuvers. Focus all remaining power into the engines. We're breaking through their lines, Cross commanded. With a flick of his hand, the Victory's Edge surged forward, its remaining power pushing the ship into a high-speed evasive course. The Triarchs responded instantly, tightening their grip, but Cross knew one thing: he wasn't going to let them have the final say. All ships, follow my lead. We go through them, not around them, he ordered. The remaining Earth fleet ships, battered but not broken, rallied around the Victory's Edge, using their smaller size and agility to slip through the Triarch's defensive net. Every ship, every fighter, every soldier was pushing their limits. The Triarch's superior numbers and firepower couldn't crush Earth's resolve. Not yet. As the Victory's Edge cut through the chaos of battle, Cross saw something that made his heart pound in his chest. A weak spot in the Triarch's defenses, a small opening in the flanks of their flagship fleet. The perfect shot, but it would mean sacrificing his ship to get close enough to deliver the killing blow. This is it, Cross muttered to himself, eyes locked on the target. Captain? Moore's voice came through again, concerned. What are you? We make our stand here, Cross said. Prepare to fire everything we've got. The final assault was coming, and Earth's forces would either break through or be annihilated. There was no middle ground. As Cross gave the order to unleash everything, he could only hope that their desperation was enough to change the tide of the war. The fate of humanity hung on the edge of a knife, and Captain Aidan Cross was prepared to fall on it. The Victory's Edge surged forward, its hull groaning under the strain of its desperate push through the Triarch lines. Captain Cross's heart pounded as he watched his crew work tirelessly, coordinating the final strike that could turn the tide of the battle. They had only one shot. If they failed, the entire fleet would be lost, and Earth would fall. All weapons fire, Cross commanded, his voice unwavering despite the growing chaos around him. The remaining Earth ships, battered but fueled by desperation, opened fire with everything they had. A wall of energy blasts, missiles, and laser beams tore through the void, targeting the weak point in the Triarch flagship formation. For a moment, it seemed as if the Triarchs didn't respond in time. Their shields flickered, and the hulls of their ships shuddered under the assault. Cross's grip tightened on the command console as the Victory's Edge plowed forward, its weapon systems unleashing devastating energy pulses at the heart of the enemy fleet. Then a colossal explosion erupted on the nearest Triarch flagship, lighting up the darkness of space like a supernova. The Triarch vessel staggered, its hull cracking as internal explosions ripped through it. But even as one enemy ship fell, the Triarchs retaliated with brutal force. A barrage of energy weapons slammed into the Victory's Edge, and alarms blared across the bridge. Cross was thrown against his seat as the ship shuddered violently. The entire hull vibrated with the force of the impacts, and the ship's shields flared dangerously low. The crew fought to maintain control, but they were now flying blind in a sea of chaos. Captain, we've lost primary weapons, Lieutenant Harris shouted, his face pale with the strain. We're down to auxiliary firepower. Shields are at critical levels. Cross's jaw clenched, but there was no hesitation in his voice. Keep pushing forward. We're not stopping until we make it through. No retreat. The Victory's Edge pressed on, weaving through the wreckage of both Earth and Triarch ships, its hull scratched and scarred from the unrelenting fire. For every enemy ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The Triarchs were relentless, pushing their advantage, and Earth's forces were running out of time. Then, as if sensing the final moments of the battle were at hand, Cross saw it, an opening. The Triarch flagship that had nearly torn them apart was now limping, its shields cracked and its systems failing. It was a behemoth, slow to maneuver, vulnerable. This was their moment. Target their command center, Cross barked. Every last bit of power into the forward cannon. We end this now." The order was executed with precision, and the Victory's Edge fired its final weapon. The blast tore through the Triarch flagship's already damaged shields and pierced its heart. The flagship's central core erupted in an explosion that sent shockwaves through space. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze as debris scattered in all directions. The void was silent. Then the alarms went off once more, louder this time, signaling a new wave of enemy reinforcements. But the tide had turned. Without their flagship, the Triarch fleet faltered. The remaining ships struggled to maintain cohesion, and the smaller Earth ships began to capitalize on their enemies' disarray. Fighter squadrons pressed their attack, cutting through the remaining Triarch forces with newfound purpose. "We've done it," Moore breathed, her voice filled with disbelief. "Their command structure is broken." Cross didn't share in the relief. His eyes were fixed on the wreckage of the flagship, but his thoughts were elsewhere. The battle was far from over. Earth had struck a heavy blow, but the Triarchs were far from defeated. This was just one victory in a war that would test humanity's resolve like never before. "We've only won this round," Cross said, his voice low and grim. "The Triarchs will come back with everything they have. We need to prepare for the next wave." But even as he spoke, Cross could feel something stirring deep inside him, an ember of hope. Humanity had pushed past its limits, shown that it could endure and fight with the fury of survival. The Triarchs had underestimated them, and now Earth's forces had proven that they would not be easily broken. The fight for Earth, for the future of humanity, was far from over. But this moment, this hard-earned victory, had proven that they could stand against the might of the galaxy's greatest threat. And as the Victory's Edge drifted toward the heart of the fractured battle, Captain Cross knew that Earth's forces would rise again. They would never surrender. Not as long as they still had the will to fight. In the aftermath of the battle, the stars seemed eerily quiet. The echoes of explosions had faded, and the debris of shattered ships drifted in the emptiness like a silent testament to the fury that had just unfolded. But Captain Cross couldn't shake the sense that the storm was far from over. The victory, hard-earned as it was only a brief respite in the long war against the Triarchs. Aboard the Victory's Edge, the crew worked tirelessly to assess the damage and rebuild their strength. The ship, though still functional, was a husk of what it had once been. The forward sections were heavily scarred, and many of its systems were barely holding together. Yet it had survived. More than that, it had triumphed. Cross stood on the bridge, staring out at the void. His hands rested on the command console, fingers drumming lightly against its surface. His mind was focused, but it was clear he had not yet fully processed the scale of what had just transpired. Earth's fleet had delivered a devastating blow to the Triarchs, but now the question was, what next? "Captain, we've received a transmission," Lieutenant Harris said, breaking his thoughts. "It's from Admiral Sinclair on Earth." "Patch it through," Cross replied, not looking away from the stars. The holographic image of Admiral Sinclair appeared in front of him, his stern face framed by the background of Earth's war room. The Admiral's brow furrowed as he spoke, clearly weary but resolute. "Cross, we've been monitoring the situation. The Triarchs have regrouped faster than we anticipated. We're seeing signs of a new offensive, larger, more coordinated than before. It looks like they're preparing for a retaliatory strike on Earth." Cross felt a chill run down his spine. He had known this moment would come, but the speed of the Triarch's recovery still struck him with an unsettling clarity. "What are they planning?" Cross asked, his voice tight. "We don't know yet, but they've brought in reinforcements, large-scale ships from their homeworld. The Triarchs are pulling out all the stops, and there's more. They've been working on something, a new weapon. We can't get full intel, but it's a game changer. If they deploy it, Earth won't survive." Cross clenched his jaw. The Triarch's technological superiority was already a massive advantage, but a new weapon, A weapon that could tip the scales decisively in their favor was something they couldn't afford to let happen. "How long do we have?" Cross asked. "Hard to say. We'll need to move quickly if we're going to strike first. We've begun preparations for a counteroffensive, but we need you and your fleet to hold the line. There's no time to waste." Cross nodded grimly. "Understood. We'll be there. Prepare for a full-scale assault." Sinclair's image flickered, but he gave a sharp nod before the transmission cut off. The room seemed to grow colder, and a heavy silence settled over the bridge. The Triarch's new weapon was a wild card that could end everything. Humanity couldn't afford to be unprepared. Cross turned to Dr. Moore, who had been quietly listening from the command station. "The Triarchs are pushing harder than ever," Cross said. "We've got one chance to stop them before they hit Earth. We can't let this new weapon get to them." Moore's eyes were sharp, the calculating mind behind her calm demeanor already at work. "If they're consolidating forces for an offensive, they'll be vulnerable at certain points. We need to exploit those weak spots, take out their reinforcements before they have a chance to launch the weapon." Cross didn't respond immediately. Instead, his gaze drifted to the screen, where the wreckage of the recent battles still floated in the vast empty space. "This is it," he said quietly. "We're not just defending anymore. We're going on the offensive. We need to hit their command centers, disrupt their new weapon, and bring their fleet down before they can fully regroup." Moore's voice cut through the tension. "We'll need precision strikes, fast, coordinated, and with enough firepower to breach their advanced defenses. It's going to be a delicate balance of speed and power." "We'll do what we've always done," Cross said, his voice steady and resolute. "We'll push beyond our limits." A crew member spoke up, interrupting the planning. "Captain, we've detected a massive fleet movement. Triarch ships moving toward Earth's orbit." Cross didn't need to ask for confirmation. This was it, the beginning of their final strike. The Triarchs were coming, and humanity's last line of defense was about to face its greatest challenge yet. "Prepare the fleet," Cross commanded. "We move out in 5 minutes. This ends now." With the weight of the moment hanging in the air, the crew of the Victory's Edge rallied around their captain. The battle for Earth's survival was not over. It was about to escalate to unimaginable heights. And Captain Cross was ready to lead humanity into the storm. The Victory's Edge cut through the void at breakneck speed, its engines roaring as the ship's battered frame strained to keep up with the urgency of their mission. Every crew member aboard was focused, every hand at their station, every eye on the battle ahead. The Triarch fleet was closing in on Earth, and humanity's last hope was this daring offensive. Captain Cross stood at the command console, his gaze sharp and unyielding. His mind raced through tactical plans, but there was no room for hesitation now. The Triarchs were relentless. Every moment they delayed risked losing the planet, the people, and everything they had fought for. His thoughts, for the briefest of moments, turned inward. Earth had faced unimaginable odds, yet they had held their ground. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. This was for everything humanity stood for. "Captain, incoming message from Earth Command," Lieutenant Harris announced, his voice tight with the weight of the mission. Cross didn't hesitate. "Put it through." Admiral Sinclair's image flickered onto the holographic display, his face stern, but there was a palpable sense of urgency in his voice. "Cross, we're picking up massive Triarch signatures. They've mobilized their entire fleet. We don't know exactly what they've planned, but there's no question. It's heading for Earth. We need to hit them hard and fast before they can deploy that weapon." Cross nodded. "We're en route. What's the status on the new weapon?" "Intel is scarce, but it's unlike anything we've seen before. It's mobile, and it looks like they're trying to get it into position near Earth's orbit. If we don't strike quickly, it could be the end of humanity." Cross's grip tightened on the console. The stakes had never been higher. "We'll take care of it, Admiral. We're in range of their fleet. We'll strike before they get any closer. The hologram flickered off, and Cross turned to his crew. This is it, our last chance. We can't afford to be cautious. They've underestimated us before. This time, we show them what humanity is capable of. The crew rallied, the energy in the room palpable. This wasn't just another battle, it was the final stand for everything they held dear. The bridge came alive with commands and tactical data as the crew executed their roles with practiced precision. Captain, we've detected multiple Triarch flagships, more reported from the science station. They're deploying advanced defense grids, probably around their new weapon. We won't be able to breach them easily. Cross didn't flinch. Then we go straight through them. We'll hit their command centers first, break their leadership, and the rest will follow. The Victory's edge accelerated, its hull groaning under the pressure of the increased speed. Outside, the vast Triarch fleet loomed, thousands of ships, vast and imposing, ready to strike. Yet humanity wasn't about to back down. We'll need cover for the final approach, Moore added. I suggest coordinating a diversion with our fighter squadrons. Cross nodded. Agreed. Lieutenant Harris, send the fighters ahead. They're to create as much chaos as possible. As the fighter squadrons launched, screaming through space like firebolts, Cross felt his heart race. The air was thick with anticipation, but he knew they had no choice now. They were committed. Here we go, Cross muttered under his breath. The ship lurched forward, slicing through the Triarch formations like a blade through flesh. The first wave of Triarch defense opened fire, their powerful cannons striking the Victory's edge with explosive force. Shields crackled and strained under the barrage, but the ship held steady, pushing forward through the firestorm. We're taking hits, Harris shouted. Shields are down to 40%. We're not stopping, Cross barked. Keep moving and keep firing. The Victory's edge plunged deeper into the heart of the enemy fleet, weaving through the destruction of the Triarch warships. Fighters zipped around them, engaging the enemy with ferocity. The entire fleet was under siege. The Triarchs, though vastly superior in size and firepower, were not prepared for humanity's unrelenting push. Captain, we've reached their command ship, Moore announced. Weapon systems locked on target. Cross's gaze was steely as he gave the order, fire. A massive energy pulse tore through the void, striking the Triarch command ship dead center. The resulting explosion was apocalyptic, an eruption of energy that sent shockwaves rippling through space, scattering debris in all directions. For a moment, everything went still. The Triarch fleet reeled, their coordination faltering. The first part of their plan had worked. But Cross knew the Triarchs were far from finished. Their new weapon was still a looming threat, and Earth's forces had only just begun to dismantle the might of the invaders. Keep pushing forward, Cross ordered. We take down their weapon next. As the Victory's edge sailed through the wreckage of the Triarch flagships, the crew stood firm. The battle for humanity's survival was not over. But this was the moment they had been fighting for. The moment they would prove that Earth's forces could withstand anything the galaxy threw at them. And the Triarchs would learn, once and for all, that humanity would never be broken. The chaos of the battle was deafening, a symphony of destruction that seemed to echo across the cosmos. The Victory's edge surged forward, its engines thrumming with a newfound determination. They had struck the heart of the Triarch fleet, but the true fight was still ahead. The new weapon, the one that could end humanity, was still in play. If they didn't neutralize it, all their efforts would be in vain. Captain, we've detected a massive energy buildup. Moore reported from the science station, her eyes glued to the monitors. It's coming from the center of the enemy fleet, near the orbit of Earth. That's their weapon. Cross's gaze hardened. This was it, the final hurdle. Lock all remaining weapons on that position, he commanded. We're going straight in. The Victory's edge blasted forward, navigating through the wreckage of enemy ships as its weapon systems came online. Fighters, having completed their diversionary assault, reformed behind them, providing a protective cloud around their ship as they pushed deeper into the heart of the Triarch formation. The battlefield was now a sea of sparks, lasers, and debris, a testament to the ferocity of the conflict. "Shields at 30%, Harris shouted, his voice strained from the constant barrage. "We're not going to survive another hit like that." "We don't need to," Cross replied grimly. "Not if we take that weapon out first." The Triarch fleet, reeling from the loss of their command ships, began to regroup. But their new weapon, the one capable of wiping out Earth's defenses, was still operational. Its energy signature grew stronger, a pulsing glow visible even from their position. "Captain, we've locked onto the target," Moore said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We have one shot at this. Any deviation, and it's over." Cross's heart raced, but his face remained stoic. There was no room for fear now. This was the moment where they either ended the war or lost everything. Fire! A blinding burst of energy shot from the Victory's edge, tearing through the void like a comet of fury. The Triarch weapon's defensive shields flared in a futile attempt to block the blast, but the Victory's edge was already too close. The shot hit the weapon's core, and the resulting explosion was apocalyptic. The blast shattered the surrounding ships, sending shockwaves through the Triarch fleet. The weapon, their final trump card, was gone. For a brief moment, time seemed to stand still. The Triarch fleet staggered, disoriented by the loss of their most powerful weapon. The remaining ships, now leaderless and thrown into disarray, faltered in the face of Earth's relentless assault. "Direct hit," Moore confirmed, her eyes wide with disbelief. "It's gone. Their weapons destroyed." Cross allowed himself the smallest of smiles, but it was fleeting. The Triarchs were still a force to be reckoned with. They hadn't won yet. "Not over yet," Cross muttered. "We need to finish them off, or they'll regroup and try again." The remaining Triarch forces, realizing the magnitude of the loss, began to retreat, but it was too late. The Earth fleet, reinvigorated by the destruction of the weapon, pressed forward with renewed strength. Fighters rained down on the remaining Triarch ships, cutting them down with relentless precision. The once imposing fleet that had nearly obliterated Earth now found itself broken and scattered. "Captain, the enemy is retreating," Harris shouted. "Their command ships are fleeing toward deep space." Cross's eyes narrowed as he watched the enemy retreat. This was the turning point. Earth had not only survived, but had now broken the Triarch's stranglehold on the galaxy. Their forces were shattered, their new weapon destroyed, and their command structure in ruins. "Let them run," Cross said, his voice unwavering. "We've won." The tension in the air seemed to lift as the last remnants of the Triarch fleet vanished into the depths of space. Earth's forces, though battered and scared, stood victorious. "We've done it," Moore whispered, her voice filled with awe. "We've actually done it." Cross looked out at the wreckage of the battlefield, the vast void now eerily silent. Earth had faced the ultimate threat and emerged victorious, but the victory was bittersweet. So many had fallen, so many sacrifices made. The war had taken its toll on them all. "We've shown them what humanity can do," Cross said, his voice low but filled with a fierce pride. "We've pushed beyond our limits. We fought and survived, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who believes in a future." As the Victory's edge turned its course back toward Earth, Captain Cross allowed himself a moment of reflection. The road ahead would not be easy, rebuilding would take time, and the Triarchs were far from gone. But humanity had proven something vital today. They would never give up. They would never back down. And no matter the odds, Earth's forces would always rise again. For this was only the beginning of humanity's true potential, a potential that would echo through the stars for generations to come. The galaxy would remember Earth's defiance, and the Triarchs would learn the true meaning of humanity's relentless will to survive.